What is the dumbest thing you did because you were horny? Story 1. My girlfriend did the exact thing at my house when we first started dating in our junior year of college. We worked a summer job together near my house that were all 4-6 hour morning shifts, so we would always come to my place after work to spend a few hours together before my parents got off work. Now, my family is pretty religious and in Asia, so my parents were very much against me being alone at home with a girl, in addition to being kinda strict on other things that American parents ignore as soon as their kids turn 18. So even in college, they would sometimes check my room on their own accord and constantly complain about the lack of organization, which I was sometimes guilty of. One time, my dad came home early with no warning while we were in the middle of round 2. I threw on a pair of shorts and ran into the bathroom to hide my boner and allow it to deflate, then spent a few minutes convincing my dad to not check my room until I finished cleaning it in a few hours. I then locked the door to my room, opened the closet, and handed my girlfriend her clothes and a charger for her phone to wait for an escape chance. Soon my mom got home and was walking around the house with my dad talking about their day, frequently passing my room and asking me how cleaning was coming along. Girlfriend hid in my closet for a good 70 minutes as I reorganized my room to prepare for the eventual checkup. She eventually had to climb out a back window and take a bus home when my mom finally got into the kitchen to prepare dinner and my dad hopped in the shower. Fast forward 6 years and we're somehow still together, going strong as ever, set to marry in 2 years. And my parents, while knowing that we're engaged and supporting the relationship, still don't know that we've spent nights together and gone on road trips as a couple, and still remind me to keep us abstinent until the wedding night. Can't wait to put a ring on her finger so I don't have to always hear premarital bad every other day. Story 2. When I was a kid, my dad would frequently take me to his job and give me meaningless tasks to help him out. He was a property manager for a secure government building, federal guards at the doors, so on. Anyways, he had his office in the basement and was left alone down there by everyone else in the building. He would smoke cigarettes down there, blast music. When I was 13, I went with him to work one day and he gave me the job of using an electric sander to take grime off of copper pipes in one of the machine rooms. I was left alone to my task for hours, and about an hour in I realized how incredibly powerful the vibration was on the sander. One thing led to another and I ended up grinding the handle of the sander on my dick. After I finished, I remember even at 13 saying to myself, "You're really weird, dude." Never told anyone, till now. Story 3. I remember this one time when I was in college and I had been crushing on this girl for a while. We had been flirting back and forth and I was pretty sure that she was into me too. We had made plans to hang out at her house one evening, just the two of us. When I got there, things started off pretty well. We chatted, watched some TV, and had a few drinks. But as the night went on, I started getting more and more horny. My mind was just completely consumed with thoughts of her. Eventually, we ended up sitting on the couch next to each other. We were talking about something random when I accidentally let slip, "Thanks, Mom." As soon as the words left my mouth, I realized what I had said. I turned bright red and started stammering, trying to explain myself. She looked at me like I was crazy and asked if I was okay. I tried to play it off as a joke, but it was pretty obvious that I had just said something really dumb. We ended up laughing it off, but I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even look at her for the rest of the night. Looking back on it now, I can't believe how stupid I was. It's amazing how being horny can make you completely lose your mind. But hey, at least we can laugh about it now. Story 4. Dyed my hair black. My roommate was doing it and the girl helping him was redonkulously hot. She came into the living room and told me, "We have some extra dye. I think you would look hot with black hair." I looked at her in that lime green tube top and said, "That sounds like a great idea." I found out I was allergic to hair dye when, 3 days later, my head swelled up and I looked like that ORC general that attacked Minas Tirith in Return of the King with a full head of Elvis black hair. It took a whole month of medication for it to go away as my head was bright red under the hair and secreting a fluid that made my hair hard as a rock. Fun times. Story 5. I had intense sex with someone after not sleeping the previous night and not having enough water or eating anything the entire day, and fainted right after. I was incredibly stressed and focused on work all night and day before she got to my apartment. We originally had planned to get me some food and water first, but somehow ended up talking in depth about our weird, ambiguous relationship and our feelings. which got really emotional, and that led to sex. Despite my exhaustion, I found a hidden well of energy within myself and went at it really hard. It was honestly great, much better than I expected given my state. But afterward, when she was actually going to order food, I went to the bathroom to wash up and suddenly realized I felt nauseous. No matter how hungry I had been a moment prior, the thought of eating was now repulsive, unthinkable. I became very hot and started sweating. I felt weak and shaky. I tried to leave the bathroom and called out to her for help. I woke up on the bathroom floor 10-15 seconds later by her count. I apparently collapsed and briefly lost consciousness, and she claimed she tried to catch me but couldn't reach in time. I'm lucky I didn't seriously injure myself on one of the hard edges in there. Just hurt my shoulder a little. Story 6. In my senior year of high school, I was supposed to take AP tests all day. It would have looked good for college. Well, all the other grades had the day off, and my boyfriend was a year younger, thus being a grade below me. He picked me up to take me to school, and since his mom worked all day, we went right to his house since we couldn't do mine because my parents worked from home. It went great until his mom came home to check on him. So he basically shoved me into his closet. It wouldn't have been a problem except it wasn't even like a full closet. It was half the size of standard closets. She left and then decided to come back and bring him lunch. I was in that closet for over 2 hours, and my phone was at 10% when I first crawled in there. I ended up just sitting in the dark for about 45 minutes of it. Anyway, our wedding is in a few months. Story 7. Oh man, I've got a story for you. It's honestly pretty embarrassing, but I guess it's kind of funny too. It all started when I met this woman at a bar. We hit it off right away, and I could tell she was into me. We ended up going back to her place, and things got pretty heated. The next morning, I found out that she had just gotten out of jail. Apparently, she had gotten into a fight at another bar and ended up getting arrested. She didn't have anyone to bail her out, so she asked me for help. I was feeling pretty horny still, and I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to spend more time with her, so I agreed to pay her bail. It was only $200, and I figured it was a small price to pay for some more fun with her. Things were going pretty well for a while. We went out, had some drinks, and even went shopping together. But as the night went on, she started getting really drunk. She was stumbling around and slurring her words, and I could tell she was getting pretty out of control. Eventually, she ended up peeing on my couch. I was completely grossed out and pretty mad, but I tried to keep my cool. That was until she tried to punch my mom. My mom was just trying to calm her down, but she was so drunk that she didn't even recognize who she was. That was the last straw for me. I took her shopping and left her there. I never talked to her again after that. Looking back on it now, I can't believe how stupid I was. But hey, you live and you learn, I guess. Story 8. I was dating a girl at work, and we would regularly have sex at her side of our business complex. Though she was part of the same company, she was part of a separate regional division and not part of corporate, so her office was typically always empty besides her. One time we were really hot and heavy into it inside the restroom, and against our better judgment we decided was a good idea. So we did our thing, and I blew the biggest, deepest load into her ass imaginable. As I pulled out, there was a fair amount of on my surprise anal and all, and I walked over to the sink to try and wash it off. As I'm rinsing myself into the sink, we hear the door to her office open and a large group of co-workers walk in. I panic and immediately try to put my away, and as I drop from my tiptoes, I slam my nutsack up against the wall of the sink and pull my tainted skin so hard I almost buckled in pain. She runs out of the restroom and closes the door behind her, and I'm sitting in the dark on the toilet seat with shit on my and hurting contemplating my life choices. Story 9. This is a tough one, but I'll try to be as honest as possible. I stayed with my ex-wife even though she had committed adultery 3 times. Looking back on it now, I know it was a dumb decision, but at the time, I felt like I didn't have a choice. I was so in love with her, and I couldn't bear the thought of being alone. I thought that if I just forgave her and moved on, everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew that things would never be the same again. It was hard to trust her after that, and it felt like our relationship was just a shell of what it used to be. But I stayed with her anyway, because I was too afraid to be alone. I remember feeling so conflicted and confused. On one hand, I was angry and hurt that she would cheat on me, but on the other hand, I was so horny and desperate for her affection that I couldn't bring myself to leave. Now, years later, I still don't know how I feel about it. Part of me regrets staying with her for so long, but another part of me is grateful for the good times we shared. I guess it's just one of those things that you can't fully understand until you've been through it yourself. Story 10. Mate, I did this the other week. I like a bit of excitement in my life, so I tend to gravitate toward the more freaky kind of girls. It's always been like this since I was a teen. I think I probably have some issues too, but this time was so f***ed, I swore I'd never go for crazy again. The sex was amazing, but I think that's why I got myself into this problem. I've learned now. Over the course of 6 hours, she'd told a homeless man to go kill himself, screamed out of my car window saying she was kidnapped and to call 911, tried to jump out of my car as I was going 80 kilometers per hour on a freeway driving her back to where she lived, and damaged my car by opening the door again whilst I was moving. Eventually, her mom came over to my place. I dropped her at her mom's house where she was living. The girl had a mark on her neck because when she tried to jump out of the car, I must have grabbed her by the necklace. This definitely saved her life, by the way. Like I said, I was doing 80 on a highway. She told her mom I had abused her, and her mom started throwing punches at me at my doorstep. The girl then comes running down the driveway with her phone out screaming, "Life Watto, I have you on camera assaulting my mother." The mother was a lot smaller than I am, so all I did was block her swings, and I probably grabbed her wrists out in front of her at some point to stop her attacking me. Again, this all happened at my front door, so at no point have I been worried about what happens to that footage. Who would attack someone at their own front door? Lol. Anyway, I was a bit of a wreck after that night. I couldn't believe it. I've dealt with some crazy and mentally challenged people in my life, but this was a whole new level. This felt like pure evil. I'm still not over it, and it's probably been about a month. So yeah, crazy is absolutely not worth it. Edit, she just went on trial for a man 12 times and sexually assaulting him with a bleach-covered broom handle. This all happened before we'd met. I think I somehow dodged a bullet here. Holy shit. Story 11. Underage. Many years ago, me and my current wife were very little honey people. We used to go have sex under this highway underpass a little off the beaten path because our parents were always home. Well, it was also near a community center type building. One day when we were walking through the woods to get there, someone thought they saw a man and a child. My wife has always been very short. Yes, it was me. We are the same age, just have a crazy height difference, and I have had a beard from a young age, haha. Anyways, long story long, I was getting a and a cop came down to the underpass from the highway up above and yelled, "Freeze." Let me tell you, we both froze. She wouldn't move and had her face covered, with my still in her mouth. Then the cop just yelled at us saying, "Can't you guys be doing this at home?" Said he could see I wasn't underage and told us about the call. It was the most embarrassing thing to ever happen. We didn't even bring it up again for a few years. Now we are married and it is a funny memory. We even went back there to mess around a year ago. Story 12. Drove from Kentucky to Illinois to meet an AOL girl I cybered with. Slept in the back of my pickup truck in front of her house because I did not think about how her parents would react to that creepy. Her dad took her on a long drive the next day to pick up furniture or something. I hid in the neighborhood and did not realize it was the alternate entrance to the neighborhood. So when she told her dad I was gone, they drove right by me while I was reading a book in the front seat, and we never got together because he protected her good dad, sad teenager. So then I drove from there to New Jersey for the same reason, and still got nothing. Meanwhile, at that second friend's house, I was AOLing other girls back home in Nevada, and one pretended to be a French girl with a crush on me, and I angrily outed her for being fake because it did not occur to me she was just being flirty and playing a weird little nervous energy game. Turned out she wanted to lose her virginity with me, according to her friend, but now she thinks I'm an asshole. So I was 0 for 3. Oh boy, being 17 was a confusing time. Story 13. I never thought that my horniness would lead me to such a disastrous situation, but looking back, it's clear that my judgment was severely clouded. I met this girl, let's call her Sarah, on a dating app, and we hit it off right away. We went on a few dates, and before I knew it, she was spending the night at my place almost every night. I enjoyed having her around, and after only 3 months of dating, I suggested that she move in with me. She was thrilled with the idea, and we quickly started making plans to decorate the apartment together. However, things started to go wrong pretty quickly. 2 months after she moved in, I started working the night shift at my job, and Sarah began acting strangely. I started to suspect that she was cheating on me, but I didn't have any concrete evidence to confront her about it. One night, I came home from work early, and sure enough, I found another guy in my apartment with Sarah. I was livid, and we had a huge argument. She tried to convince me that it was a mistake and that she still loved me, but I knew better. The worst part was that Sarah refused to leave my apartment even after I broke up with her. She kept squatting, citing some obscure tenant laws that made it difficult for me to get her out on my own. I had to take legal action and take her to court to finally get her out of my apartment. The whole situation was a nightmare, and it all started because I let my hormones cloud my judgment. Story 14. Spam drunk texts to high school EXEs. 2 of them respond. Zipping on Adderall and Sam Adams, I went to the first girl's mobile home. I remember her being about 30 pounds heavier and had a cute anklet. And the bathroom, where the last thing I remember was running to it wrapped in her grandma's knitted blanket. Naked, I dropped the blanket and I puked. I know I was shitting at the same time I was puking. A lot of shit. I was woken up the next morning at girl number 2's home in her basement by her husband asking if I wanted to go to Carl's Junior High. He was amused by my drunk texts to his wife. No harm, but I apologized. His wife told him that she texted back asking if I needed a ride, and I took that as an invite. They found me about a half-mile away from the Waffle House and scooped me up, poop and barf covered, rinsed me and changed me, then put me on the couch. However, when I found my phone, it was loaded with messages from Girl 1, mostly going berserk over the all over her grandma's blanket, puke on the counters, and a mixture of both covering the wall just under the window that was hanging open. Ha! That was shamefully dumb. Story 15. I helped break into a girl I knew for her apartment. We got dropped off by a cab at her apartment late at night after the bars closed. Then she realized she didn't have her keys and her roommates were not home. It was on the 4th floor and each floor had balconies. So I asked if her balcony was unlocked and she said yes. So we triple-checked I was looking at the right balcony and I started climbing. At each floor I would stand up on the railing and then hold on to the ceiling. The problem was each floor required a little leap of faith where I had to hop about a foot and grab the bottom of the railing on the next floor. Then I could pull myself up. So freaking stupid, I could have so easily missed the grab and never would have landed back on the railing. 3 a.m., drunk and horny. Thankfully, the balcony door was unlocked. That would have been terrible. Story 16. I used to have sex with my high school girlfriend in her room nearly daily, and she had no working locks. It was always a game of roulette if someone walked in. Her mom came in one time while we were buck naked going at it, and she just screamed her name and stormed out. Did that stop us? No, we still continued taking that risk. One time we were under the covers doing it, and her grandma walked in as I was on the vinegar strokes. My girlfriend jumped off quick enough to where she didn't know what was going on, but I was already at the point of no return. So I'm looking her grandma in the eyes while continuing to stroke my penis and ejaculating under the sheets trying to keep a straight face. It actually worked and she had no idea. The only time I was ever able to orgasm with a completely straight face. Story 17. When I was 14, I got my first job night cleaning the office where my mother worked in nursing administration. It was a 1, maybe 2-hour job that I regularly took over 5 hours to complete because I faffed off, ate desk candy, and played with the office computers. Well, this was in the early 90s, and one thing that was really taking off at the time were phone sex lines. I, being a dumb kid and having zero idea that phone numbers could be tracked, found an ad for one of these lines in a newspaper that was on someone's desk and decided to call it. Next night, I did it again and again. After about a month, I had racked up over $800 in phone line surcharges. At that time, the charge would just be appended to your phone bill. The office manager found the charges on the bill and immediately put 2 and 2 together. She handled it very professionally, approaching my mother privately and asking her if she had any idea where these charges could be coming from. My mother subsequently went off on me that night. And that's the story of how I almost got my mother fired and also worked for 2 months without pay to compensate the company for losses. All told, she and I both got very lucky. The office manager didn't pursue legal action or civil restitution and was willing to let me work off the charges. My mother beat the crap out of me though. Story 18. Almost got caught tugging on Oscar Mayer in my hospital room. Broke my foot a couple of months ago in a car wreck. Was in the ICU for 3 days. Hooked up to wires, could barely move to go to the restroom. Then 3 days later they put me into a normal room. They finally hooked me up on a portable heart machine to check my vitals after all these days. You know, not being able to caress the serpent, these spheres dangling from my body, was calling for justice and release. Fighting the urge, undeniably, I surrendered to this unholy manner. I was able to go to the restroom by myself. I took my phone with me, remembering the quote from The Dark Knight, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Let's just say I chose the latter. So about 3 minutes and while watching nurse-themed videos, so wish I was lying, all I hear is banging on the door from a nurse asking me if I'm okay. She was saying through the door my heart rate was up to 170. Me freaking out, totally forgot that I had the portable heart monitor on. I told her that I was fine, that I was taking a number 2, and was having a difficult time trying to get it out, making up a total complete lie while still having this hard flesh gripped around my hands. After the cleansing of my body, I cleaned the filth that had protruded from me. I had a boot on for my foot that I quickly thought of and tucked the phone inside to hide the evidence, feeling like I was on the show 60 Days In. I then hurried and opened the door, luckily from the sheer panic. I had my chinchilla tail decreased rapidly to find a doctor and 5 nurses waiting outside. It was like I was dying to them.